Thank you for Laura. Just thank you for what she carries of you. And just pray for her now as she shares what's on her heart. And yeah, just pray that each and every word will carry your weight and your presence. In your name. Amen.
Nice. Let's do this, not quite as tall. All right, everyone on Zoom. Hello. Hi, Mum and Dad. Hi, Carly. Little fan club. Hello, everybody in the room. Everyone all right? Anyone else feeling that missed hour of sleep? I am a little bit. Nice. So we are following this mini Easter series at the moment. So if you're here last week, Josh had this kind of chalkboard on the wall and was using all these amazing pictures and sort of took us to the point in the Easter story where Jesus is on the cross and says it's finished. And we were kind of thinking about like just the darkness of that moment, and Josh sort of deliberately left it a bit unfinished. And then next week we got Dougie Brew, who's going to be hitting us with Easter Sunday, resurrection, all of that good stuff. And so I've got the job in the middle of helping us to unpack basically the day in between. And I've called this talk The In Between. That's what we're going to be thinking about this morning. So we're looking at basically the day that's called Holy Saturday, which is the day between Good Friday, the cross, the crucifixion, all of that. And it's before Easter Sunday and the resurrection and all of that. And it's just this kind of strange, slightly awkward, maybe unwanted, but we'll get into that, pause in the middle of all the amazing, incredible, shocking events of the first Easter weekend. So that's what we're thinking about today, this day in between, the Saturday. Yeah. And it's got loads of different names, and people all around the world celebrate it in some quite random ways, I found out as I was doing a bit of research. It's called things like Black Sunday all the way through to like the Great Sabbath. So yeah, it's a really interesting day. And I don't know if I was thinking, I wonder if any of us have any Saturday traditions in Easter weekend. I'm pretty sure that some, if not all of us, will have things we maybe do on the Friday or the Sunday, but I wonder if any of us kind of mark the Saturday in any way. That's an interesting conversation to have. I'd love to hear if you do. But that's what we're thinking about today. So let's read first of all what the Gospels have to say about what was going on for the disciples on that first Holy Saturday, that first day in between. And it's in Luke. So it's Luke chapter 23, verse 56. And this is what it says the disciples were up to on the day after watching Jesus being crucified. It simply says, they rested on the Sabbath in obedience to the commandment. And that is it. That is all we get. That's the only glimpse we get of what was going on for the disciples on that. Really, all this detail for Good Friday, you kind of follow in like this amazing detail Jesus's journey to the cross. And then when you read ahead in all of the Gospels, you get all these amazing stories when he is resurrected, when he walks out of the tomb on the Sunday. There's all these amazing stories about the people that he encounters and what he does. But for this day in the middle, this is the only glimpse we get. This one sentence is all that we get, kind of a window into what the disciples were doing on this day. And what they were doing was practicing this ancient tradition, which actually has its origins in the book of Genesis. So I thought we could just read a little bit in Genesis, where God kind of sets up this thing called Sabbath. So it's in the second chapter of Genesis, so right at the start of our Bibles. Chapter 1 is God making everything, basically, like super busy, super creative. And then in chapter 2, verses 2 and 3, it says this: by the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. And God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. And I don't know if you saw, if you picked up on, and Josh talked a little bit about last week, but that kind of cool like mirroring of, and then there's this strange kind of day of rest, and in those verses in Genesis God says it's finished and then he rests. So there's this interesting kind of mirroring, and God sort of right at the beginning of things sets up this kind of rhythm for the world, and I think for humankind. And so this Sabbath is something that the Jewish people, Jesus himself and his disciples, would have celebrated every single week from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. They would have stopped and rested, and remembered who God was and what God was doing with their people. So that's what was going on. That's what the disciples were doing on this day in between. And I don't know about you, but when I was kind of reading the story, I kind of got to this point of like, so what's the point? Like, why is Saturday even there? Like, if God knew that he was going to resurrect Jesus, which he did because that was the plan, Jesus himself kept telling his disciples, even though they couldn't quite comprehend it, what was going to happen. Like, why the pause? Surely Jesus could have entered the tomb and then bam, resurrection, let's get to Easter Sunday, let's just get there. What's the point of this silent day in between? Is there any point? Was Jesus resting? What was going on? And yeah, I mean, I don't pretend to have the whole answer or, you know, even any of the right answers, but I guess as I've been sort of thinking and reflecting and asking God, like, what is this day all about? I felt like I've sort of seen, I guess, a bit of treasure in it that we can take away for ourselves to sort of help us navigate maybe our own journeys of in between and how we deal with it. So one of the things that really kind of stuck out to me, we've actually as a family been on our own sort of journey with Sabbath. So it's quite cool getting to talk about it today. Probably started off around the time that we had the cafe. Obviously, when business, you get to decide how you work and when you work, you're sort of calling the shots. And so we had to really think, like, how many hours are we going to be open? How much is Josh going to work? Like, what should our week look like? Kind of taking into account that we want. How do you even do that? So it kind of started for us then. But probably about a year ago, like just a few things kind of collided. We read like a really cool book, and a few other things kind of came together. So probably since about last summer, we've been kind of stopping and Sabbathing together as a family. So what that looks like for us at the moment, and it could change, it's all kind of a bit of a learning process, is from sort of mealtime on a Friday to evening meal on a Saturday. We stop and we don't do any jobs, anything that even looks like a job. We don't go shopping, we don't like spend loads of money. And we try and come off technology as much as possible and just slow right down and just take time to stop and reconnect with ourselves and with God and with each other as a family. And when COVID has allowed, we've sort of invited other people into that and been for walks with people or shared meals. And just really tried to like celebrate God and his good gifts and this world that he's put us in for 24 hours and just take it slow. And it's been a real learning process. It's been surprising to me how hard it is to rest well. It's actually it's something you have to learn, I think. But it's been really fruitful and really exciting for us as a family. And I feel like there's been some really good things that have come out of it for us. But I think one of the things that I've learned from personal experience of trying to get my head around this whole Sabbath thing is that one of the things Sabbath is, like at its heart, is it's a declaration of trust. I think that's one of the things that I've been learning. It's this kind of allowing yourself to just stop and be still and to not be super productive for 24 hours sort of dispels this illusion that we have that we're all in control of our own lives. To actually choose to stop sort of spinning all the plates of your own life for 24 hours almost forces you to recognize that actually you're not actually as in control as you think you are. It's actually God who's in control. I mean, he literally holds our physical bodies together. And so that's one of the things I've been learning, that this kind of stopping and just resting and refusing to be super productive and loads of activity, but actually just taking it slow sort of puts the focus back on who God is and who we're not. It's this real profound declaration of trust, I think, one of the things it is. And so I was thinking about, when you start to think about that sort of stuff being present in Sabbath and remembering Sabbath, and then you bring that back to that verse that we just read in Luke, when you think about the disciples, totally shell-shocked as they must have been, just in this place of grief and fear and hopelessness, maybe not like the sharp trauma that it must have been actually watching Jesus go through this brutal execution on the Friday, but you know, that moment where you've had something really disturbing happen, and then you wake up the next morning and for a minute you've forgotten, and then it's suddenly all, it kind of, you're like, oh yeah. And this sort of surreal, cold, empty day that I think they must have had. When you think about them in that sort of headspace, choosing still to stop and to rest and to be still and to trust and to remember who God was, and to sort of remember and stir up all the promises that God had made to their people over the years, it starts to feel like, okay, maybe there's something in this day. Maybe if we don't just rush past it, there's maybe something that we could kind of learn and take away, something that the disciples had going on that we could take away. Because do you know what? This actually really shocked me when I found it. Do you know who wasn't stopping and resting on that day? And I always thought that that verse that we read in Luke was the only glimpse we got of what was going on that Saturday, but it's not. It's the only glimpse we get of what the disciples were doing on the Saturday, but we actually have a whole chunk in Matthew's gospel about a very different group of people and what they were doing on the Saturday. And this is eye-opening, I think. So can you pop it up on the screen, Nick? So this is also going on that same Saturday. The next day, the one after preparation day. So preparation day is the day before Sabbath. Everyone's getting ready. So it's talking about the Sabbath, the Saturday. The chief priests and the Pharisees went to Pilate. Sir, they said, we remember that while he was still alive, that deceiver said, after 3 days, I will rise again. So give the order for the tomb to be made secure until the 3rd day. Otherwise, his disciples may come and steal the body and tell the people that he has been raised from the dead, and this last deception will be worse than the first. Take a guard, Pilate answered. Go, make the tomb as secure as you know how. So they went and made the tomb secure by putting a seal on the stone and posting the guard. Now that is pretty shocking, and it's shocking because this group of people that it's talking about, these religious leaders, time after time after time while Jesus was alive, accused him of dishonoring the Sabbath, of breaking God's laws, being an irresponsible Jewish man, and desecrating the Sabbath. Basically, normally what Jesus was doing was healing people, which is totally what God is about. He was bringing the kingdom of God to people and setting people free. But these religious leaders, in their sort of narrow-minded, self-important mindset, couldn't miss that completely. And so again and again, they said to Jesus, you're breaking the Sabbath, you're breaking God's laws, you're dishonoring God's laws. And the same group of people who accused Jesus of that his whole life are now on this Sabbath completely dishonoring everything that the Sabbath stands for and being really busy, basically still trying to manipulate what God is up to, still trying to take matters in their own hands and basically ensure that nobody will ever think about Jesus again. Nobody's ever going to want to follow him, which of course is totally futile because God had a plan and nothing was going to stand in the way of that. But I actually, the more I thought about that, just felt so sad. I think in that bit there, it's like, wow, they really missed it. Like they really missed what God was doing. And I think that is so apparent there in that chapter. They were prepared completely do the thing that they'd been going on at Jesus about because they just totally missed what God was up to. They completely missed it. They were so far from the kingdom of God. And I just think that contrast between those two groups of people on that same day. The disciples, you know, heartbroken, probably, to be honest, just like gritting their teeth as they celebrated Sabbath. Probably didn't feel like much of a celebration that day, but they did it. They rested as they dwelt in this moment. I guess they didn't really have a choice, but they rested. They remembered who God was. And then this other group of people, so busy and totally missing the miracle that God had set in motion. Which kind of brings us to I get the point of all this, really, and hopefully you've kind of been getting little bits so far, but it basically starts to raise the question, well, what do we do? Like when we find ourselves in an in-between moment, or maybe a whole in-between season, maybe it's like long, you're in between. How do we handle it? What do we do when we're in that middle part of a journey where no idea how the story's going to end? And maybe, you know, I think for the disciples, to be honest, when you read the Gospels, I don't think any of them were really expecting Jesus to be seen again. They all seem pretty surprised when they do see him again. I don't think any of them really had much hope on that day. I think it was pretty hopeless. I wonder what we do in those moments where we can't see the end of the story, and actually it all does just feel a bit hopeless, and we're in the middle and we desperately want to be at the end. We desperately want that happy ending, but it's not there and we can't see it. What do we do in those moments? How do we handle them? Are we able to stop and still trust and still rest? Or are we really busy trying to fix things and trying to, I don't know, control events? And I was kind of thinking, well, actually, I guess in-betweens come in lots of different shapes and sizes. They don't all look the same, do they, for all of us? And maybe for some of us, maybe you're right in the middle of an in-between that's, to be honest, just a bit horrific and really, really painful, and it doesn't feel like there's any hope. Like you cannot see that this situation could get any better. Maybe that's where you are right now. Maybe you've walked through a journey like that. I was thinking, I've got a really good friend, and I'm sure that you know people on this journey currently as well, but I've got a really precious friend who's currently battling cancer. She's got a husband, and there's a whole group of us on WhatsApp that have kind of said that we'd stand with them and support them and pray. And it's just a horrific journey, isn't it? Like for any of you who've kind of brushed up against cancer in your own life or with other people, it's just horrific. There's nothing good about it. The sort of the physical and even more so, I think, the mental battle that my friend's going through, it's just horrible. It is horrible in every way. And my friend loves Jesus. You know, all of us praying, we all love Jesus. We all believe that he could work a miracle, that she could be healed like that. But at the moment, we have no idea how the story's going to end. No idea. And so from my friend, she's in this very real in-between with no guarantee that there will be a happy ending. And it's horrific. But I've been so moved by the way that her and her husband are sort of facing it. And they're not perfect. Like she definitely, I think, has some days where she's just like, this is just awful and I don't know what to do with it today. But mostly they're kind of like, please pray. Like we want to connect with God. We want to connect with hope. We want to connect with peace. Like we want to journey this with God. And I've just been so, I don't know, impressed, moved by the way that they're wanting to journey this horrendous in between that they're in that sort of way. And I don't know what it's like, you know, as close as I am to her, like I'm not actually going through that journey myself, so I can't pretend to know what it's like to actually be on that sort of a journey. But I think what I felt as kind of reading this verse and thinking about, God, what have you got to say through this stuff on this weird in-between days, that, you know, maybe there's a way, even in horrific in-betweens where it just feels like there's no hope, maybe there's a way of even then, even in that place, finding Jesus and finding a way of trusting and resting and being. I read this thing that John Ortberg wrote, and he was saying, we know what the miracle of Easter Sunday was. The miracle of Easter Sunday is that Jesus was raised from the dead. But he said, well, the miracle of Saturday is that the eternal Son of God was in the grave. And he said, if we can find Jesus even in death, even in hell itself, then where can we not find him? Where will Jesus not turn up for you and I if he was found even in hell itself on that in-between day? Which is amazing. Even in the most horrific in-between, Jesus there's already be quite that horrific. But I was thinking that actually I don't think any of us really like the middle bit of a journey, especially in our culture where we're like, I want it now, that kind of instant gratification thing. Like, I think we want to like set off and arrive straight away. We want to know when the ending's going to be. We want to get there. We want to arrive. That's much more exciting than the middle bit of a journey. And so actually for some of us, it might just feel like, I'm not in a real painful, traumatic time, but I'm just in the middle place. And that can be just as hard, actually, to kind of stay faithful and stay focused and stay hope-filled and stay, other people focused as well. I read this other quote. Nick, you can put this one up. Again, thinking about this in-between of the Saturday. It says, Holy Saturday is the silence between the "it is finished" of Good Friday and the "he is risen" of Easter Sunday. It isn't the agonizing pain and sharp suffering of the cross, nor is it the exuberant joy and the hearty celebration of the resurrection. It's the quiet, uninspiring, soldier-guarded grave that we remember. And maybe there aren't many Holy Saturday services out there because we want to feel something, pain or excitement. And I think that's quite true about who we are as human beings. I don't think we like the middle bit where it all goes a bit quiet. But do you know what? I think the answer is the same. I think for both sort of in-betweens, it's this same thing of, well, God, I've got to believe that you're here, that you are present in pain, in grief, in excitement, but also just in really mundane, I've just got to keep going, keep slogging sort of moments. And maybe there's a way of connecting with Jesus and what he's doing, even in those sorts of in-betweens. Last quote by a guy called Frederick Buechner. I don't know how he says his last name, something like that. I love this quote. He says, listen to your life and see it for the fathomless mystery it is, in the boredom and pain of it, no less than in the excitement and gladness. Touch, taste, smell your way to the holy and hidden heart of it, because in the last analysis, all moments are key moments and life itself is grace. I love that. All moments are key moments. And I think the message of this in-between Saturday is that even that Saturday, even that flat, silent, empty, cold Saturday was actually a key moment. And maybe our in-between moments, whether they're horrific and traumatic, or whether they're just a bit mundane and boring and we just want to rush past them, I think they can all contain within them key moments where we get to encounter Jesus, and we can choose to trust and to really activate that trust and that just dwelling in him. So we're gonna share communion in a minute. I think Claire's gonna come and lead that. Maybe I'll just pray. Just really wanted to pray. And I don't know, for some of you, it might be really tough at the moment, and this might have really sort of stirred some stuff up for you. So please grab someone and pray. If you feel like, man, I am really going through it at the moment and it's a tough journey, a tough in between, then please get someone to pray with you. But let me just pray, and then let's share communion together. Father, I thank you for I thank you for all the parts of that original Easter weekend. And I thank you for this strange day, this Holy Saturday. I thank you that it kind of shows us how present you are in all of our moments, even the in-between ones where we don't have a clue what's going on or what you're doing, where it's just boring and we're just plodding along. God, I thank you that even there you are with us and you are present and you are active. And I just pray for us as a community, God, that you would help us to trust you more, that you would deepen our trust as a community. You would help us to hang on in there, God, when things are dark and silent and empty, to encourage each other, to even then be able to hold on to hope and hold on to you, Jesus. So yeah, I pray as we share communion together, God, that you just encounter us and remind us what you're like, remind us of you.